welcome to my kitchen. My name is Ridley, and this is my kitchen, how I found it. We are continuing our journey, and today we're going to take a quick stop at our first location in Japan. Specifically, we're going to be visiting Osaka. I'm really excited for this one because it just looks delicious. It's called Okonomiyaki, and what I love about this dish is it has a really well-versed history. Like, you can actually trace this back to the Edo period. It started as a thin crepe-like pancake with some miso paste that was served as part of the tea ceremonies, and then from there it became more of a sweet kind of crepe, and then it drifted back more towards savory, and then after World War II there was rice shortages, and so wheat flour became more used in it. Yeah, so it's evolved, and from what I understand, it essentially means grilled as you like it. And so you can make it however you want. There are so many different recipes for this specific recipe, and so many different topping options and different things that you can substitute out. I picked one that I found was fairly consistent. It has a lot of elements from a lot of the recipes that I was seeing, and then I actually picked one specific technique for how to cook it that I think is really brilliant. So first, let me go into the ingredients, how we're gonna be putting them together, and then a quick overview of how we're actually gonna be putting it together over on the stove. But yeah, so this is kind of like a savory pancake of sorts. So it starts, of course, with a batter. And so the batter, we're just going to have some flour. We have a little bit of some awase dashi. Now you can get dashi stock at the store, pre-made. I just made some of this earlier because it uses bonito flakes and kombu, and I happen to have them on hand. But some awase dashi, some flour, a little bit of some salt, pepper, and a tiny bit of sugar, just a pinch of each. We're gonna mix those together and then let that sit for about an hour in the fridge to let the gluten really relax in it and just give it a better texture. And then as far as the fillings of this pancake goes, that's when it gets really interesting. So for the Osaka version, it is specifically noted that there is cabbage, there is scallions, and then also this one right here, nagaimo, which is a type of yam, is going to be added into the batter to add a really interesting texture to it. Then we are going to be adding some egg into it as well. So I've got 3 eggs here. I've seen recipes that go anywhere between 2 and 4 eggs, so I split the difference. A little bit of some pickled ginger here. Now for this one is going to be benishoga. And so this is just pickled ginger. And there are a couple different varieties of it, but benishoga is the one that we have here. You can use, for texture, we're adding a little bit of crunchiness. This is panko breadcrumbs, but the traditional thing that you should be using is leftover tempura batter scraps. You can order it online from Amazon, but I had the hubris of thinking my local store would carry it. They did not, so this is a substitute for that ingredient. If you have the forethought, you can fry up your own little tempura bits, and that will work as tempura scraps, or you can order it online. It's really easy to find. You just have to do it in advance. So all of that there is going to be mixed together and shredded and diced up and put into the pancake. And then at the end, we're going to be topping it with a little bit of bonito flake here, which is going to be sort of shredded fish bits. You also use this to make the dashi, or the basis for the soup stocks. We're going to be topping it with a little bit of aonori, which is sort of ground up seaweed. And then we're going to be making a really quick okonomiyaki sauce. You can buy this in the store, but a lot of recipes that I found are just a bit of ketchup, a little bit of oyster sauce, and then mix it with a tiny bit of sugar and Worcestershire sauce, which I really enjoy Worcestershire sauce, so it's fun seeing it used as a major addition to another recipe. And then the last thing on top is going to be a little bit of Kewpie mayonnaise. I am very unfamiliar in the world of mayonnaise, but absolutely every recipe specifically said Kewpie or Japanese style mayonnaise. So I'm not sure what difference that makes, but we're going to be going that way with it. So first thing we need to do is we're just going to be taking our bowl here, adding the flour. We're going to be adding salt, pepper, and sugar, just a tiny bit. We're going to be adding the stock here, which I've seen recipes anywhere from a 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup, so I'm somewhere in the middle there. And then the last thing that we're going to need to add into here is going to be this yam. So I'm gonna really quickly just cut off the edges here. You can also use just a potato peeler for this, but since I'm gonna be using this knife anyways, and it's just the one piece, I didn't wanna pull out a whole nother utensil that needs cleaning just for this one little bit. Now, on first inspection, this sort of has a crunch to it similar to, say, a jicama, but I can already tell that it's got this really slimy texture to it. So there are little specific ceramic graters that you can get for this type of yam. I don't have one, so they recommend instead to use the smallest holes on a box grater. So I'm gonna do my very best here, but I am expecting it to get very, very sloppy and messy very soon. Now, I will say it's grating a lot more quickly than I had anticipated. I've had things like ginger takes quite a bit longer to grate. I guess maybe because I go on a microplaner, but this is grating very quickly and it's almost dissolving into this goop. This would make an amazing prop for use in any kind of footage where you need, like, look at this! Look at this! Ah, that's amazing! Okay, so I watched a video of people working with this, and I underestimated the amount of joy that you can get from this texture. It's spectacular. I want to put it in a costume. Oh my word. Okay, so it is fantastic. I'm gonna quickly transfer this into into our bowl over here. And then the important step that I've been told for this is to mix it thoroughly. I forgot to grab a fork, and also my fingers are slimy, so give me a quick second and I will be back. Yeah, okay. So, we now have our yam mixed in, and it says, or in all the recipes that I've seen, they said that you really want to make sure that this is thoroughly mixed together, and you want it to have some bubbles too, so you really want to aerate it a little bit along the way. Make sure we're mixing all of the flour in. It has definitely got a very different texture to the dough than a lot of ones I've worked with in the past. It is sticking together more, and I think that's definitely because of the yam. It's holding a stickier shape right off the bat. So, not sure if that's good, but it's definitely where we're at. And then all I'm gonna do with this, cover it up with some plastic wrap. We're gonna stick it into the fridge, and we're gonna let that rest for about an hour. Recommended time fully for this would be overnight. If you've got the time to do it, go ahead and do it overnight. This one, we're gonna be doing it just for the hour. A little bit of time for us to prep the rest of the ingredients, get the camera set up over there. It just seemed like the right time. Oh man. This is so fascinating. I mean, all of the recipes that we've done before are things that at all steps of them, except for the cuttlefish, I was fairly familiar with them. I kind of knew what to expect. We are in uncharted territory for me here. I'm seeing a lot of bubbles. I feel good about that. This feels like a dough I've never made before. Good. Yeah. Plastic wrap. All right, that is the batter. We have got that going. Now, as a quick note, if you do use the nagaimo, it is optional for some versions of the recipe, so definitely not necessary if you don't want that, that texture, but I actually really enjoyed it. What I did see in a couple of different notes is that it can irritate certain people's skin. So if you have really sensitive skin, you might want to use gloves or just rinse your hands off really quickly when you're done using it to make sure that you have as minimal contact as possible. As far as prepping the rest of the ingredients, most of it's pretty familiar. So we're going to grab these green onions here. I am just going to chop these up all the way along. We're going to separate the greens or the dark greens out from the whites. Use them separately, but we're going to use the whole onion along the way. So that will be a very quick chop chop. Scrap here, mostly whites, mostly greens. Now for the cabbage, you want to use about a half of a small head of cabbage. This is a fairly normal head of cabbage, I think. I've already used a couple leaves of it because I wanted to try a gyoza recipe. So cut it in half, and then it says to remove the core. Be very careful if you're doing this, because the knife is pointed towards your hand during a part of that. Do not push super hard. If it's starting to bind up, don't force it. It is always safer to try and find another way, including setting it up like this and cutting through it with a thinner knife, than to injure yourself by trying to make what you've got work. So we've got the core removed there. We're then going to cut across this one in some strips. Try to keep the shape of the cabbage half as you're going through it, because now that we've got this, we're going to turn it and go back through and get us a really nice dice on the cabbage. Now, I saw some recipes that were really specific about this step and the dimensions you need the cabbage to be in. Others said you could run it through a box grater. I think that's probably too fine of a grate. I picked something that's a little bit in the middle here, so it's probably maybe a standard onion dice to it, but if you want to get really into the weeds, there are some specifics that say, you know, each piece needs to be this long by this wide, and that's something I don't think I have the knife skills to really be able to pull off. But all of the cabbage here, I need a bowl for, but we're going to set this off to the side. And that is really, oh, nope, and we need to cut up some of the ginger. So give me a quick second to give a home for the cabbage. We'll be back for the ginger, mix up the sauce, and that is all the prep for the ingredients, because everything else is just going to be cooking over on the stove. All right, so we've got that. We're going to take our pickled ginger here. And we're just going to chop this up very finely. Now, some recipes say you can throw this into the batter and cook it alongside. Some just use it as a topping. I think we're probably gonna do just a little bit of both. I want to see how this flavor will give a nice little kick to it, because this is gonna be that sort of pickled, tangy bang right in the middle of everything that I don't know. There's so much going on in this recipe that I have absolutely no idea how it's gonna come out, but it sounds delicious. All right, so we're just going to be mixing all of these ingredients together to make the sauce. Really, really easy. We've got some oyster sauce right here. And this is, I want to say, about 1/4 cup. And then we have just about 1/2 cup each of some ketchup and some Worcestershire sauce. If you aren't aware, one of the main ingredients in Worcestershire sauce is actually anchovies, and it gives it this really amazing umami flavor. So I think that it does that specific job here of, instead of maybe having, like, it ties the fish elements together. You've got the bonito flakes, which are both in the dashi and as a topping, and then just a little bit of anchovy tone in the sauce itself. I think that all works really well. Worcestershire. Still has the best spelled name ever. And then a little bit of sugar. And then just mix to dissolve the sugar, and that is the sauce. So we're gonna have this along with the kewpie as the sauce toppings over the top of the okonomiyaki. And then we're gonna have some of the ginger, some of the seaweed, and the bonito flakes as the dry toppings. So all of that's just gonna come together for a just smorgasbord of flavors and textures. And again, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not scared. I'm a little scared. All right. Well, this is the end of prep for all of this. So I'm gonna get everything moved over to the stove, and we will see you over there for some cooking. So we have the dough resting, but in the meantime, I made a realization that there was an entire ingredient that I had not introduced because it was still in the fridge. So this is uncured pork belly. It's another thing that's going to be pretty easy to find if you go to, say, like an Asian market. They had it in a couple different varieties. The only thing is that if you want it for this dish, you're going to want it very thinly sliced, and the only option that they had available at mine was thick sliced. So I did my best to try and trim these down a little bit, some with more success than others. I've still got some pretty chunky pieces in there. But I've tried to trim these down a little bit. I'm going to be using a cooking technique that's, there's a couple different ways to go about putting the okonomiyaki together, so I'm going to be using the one that I think is going to be the most appropriate for the thickness of meat that we've got here. But just know, I would recommend getting it pre-sliced because you want them to be uniformly thick and you want them to be very thinly sliced for this specific endeavor. All right, we have everything together here. We've let this rest for probably just shy of an hour, maybe approaching an hour, but getting pretty close. So theoretically, this should have loosened up some of the gluten that was in here, and we should still have a nice, pretty loose batter. No idea if that's what it's supposed to look like, but I have high hopes. So in order to get this going, what I'm going to be doing is first I'm going to set the pan up, and this is sort of the technique that I'm using to try and make sure that we cook through all of this really thick slices of the pork belly. So some of the recipes that I saw will have you make the pancake first, put the pork belly on top, and then flip it. I'm going to be putting this on the bottom. This is first of all going to allow me to cook down all of this pork first and make sure that it gets cooked, but it's also going to render the fat out of the pork belly, and we can use that to help prevent the sticking of the food during that step. If you don't do that, a lot of the recipes that I was seeing suggested that you put in some neutral oil instead, but that's kind of why I like this, is because we can use the fat from the pork belly itself as the, I guess, anti-stick or oil at that point. All right, so I'm trying to get an even layer together. I did not do a very good job of cutting these into even pieces, but we're gonna do the best we can. So, get a nice even layer of the pork belly all around the bottom. Don't throw your pan off. Setting this to medium-low heat. All right, so we're gonna get this to start heating up. While that's working on, we're just gonna throw everything together here. So we're gonna take the cabbage all in together. We're gonna do about half of the ginger, and this is also gonna add a really vibrant red color to it, which is fascinating. Some recipes call for adding the katsuobushi at this point, but most of them do not, so I'm gonna just add that one as a topping. We've got our scallion whites, and we're gonna throw in a little bit of the scallion greens. And also we have the panko breadcrumbs, or if you have the tempura bits, use the tempura bits. And then the eggs as well. So we're gonna be mixing the 3 eggs in. Lots and lots of things all coming together. And as far as I know, we're just gonna mix it all together until everything is thoroughly mixed. All right, it is starting to thicken and coat all the ingredients really well. So I was worried at first that there wasn't going to be enough moisture, but it is definitely thickened up and dispersed much better than I anticipated. I think it's just because there was that big pile of cabbage right on top. It might be better to mix sort of the dry ingredients together and then put the wet on top and mix them in, but it does seem to be working in either case. Now, here, the notes that I was seeing was just to make sure that everything is very, very well incorporated. Especially because there's so much going on, you want to make sure that everything is everywhere. I do like the shock of red that those pickled ginger pieces add to it, because it's just so very, it just jumps out so much from everything else going on in it. Starting to hear a light sizzle from our pork belly, so that's starting to render down. And then we are going to take half of this batter, or I guess roughly half, because this should make 2 to 3 pancakes. Hi guys. Put this right over the top. Spread it down flat. And then we are going to let this cook for about 10 minutes. I'm just going to be keeping an eye on it and checking it every couple of minutes to make sure that it's not burning. If it does seem that it's going to be burned before the end of the 10 minutes is up, just turn the temperature down a little bit and give it a shake every now and again to see if it can slightly pull away and get some browning on the bottom. So we're gonna let this go for a few minutes, and we will see you for the next step, which is just to flip it and cook the other side. Okay, so it's time for me to flip this, and I've seen a couple various ways to do it, and I don't know which is the best. One that I saw was to take the whole thing and to flip the whole thing onto the lid, and then from the, I don't trust myself, so I'm gonna do my best to try and flip it with a spatula. Pray for me. Oh. I am actually able to get under here better than I was anticipating. I was very worried that this would be completely just adhered to the bottom. I think there's a little bit of adhesion, but not crazy, and it smells really good. All right, let's do something in the middle. Ooh, okay, so not all of my bacon came up. Well, my pork belly, but not all of my pork belly came up, so I'm gonna pull this off. Re-put these over the top of it. And slide the whole thing back in. All right. It's not supposed to look quite like that. It's supposed to be browned all over. So I think that maybe we got a little bit too much cooking on the pork belly first, maybe not quite enough cooking on the pancake behind. So I'm gonna leave this one here for about 8 minutes, just to cook through on the other side, get it covered to make sure that we cook all the way through, because there is egg in there. And we'll see how it looks then. But once again, we're figuring this out. At the very least, it should be very delicious. All right, so this was still going. It still had a couple of minutes left, but I noticed that it smelled a little bit scorched, so I'm gonna pull it off now just because I am a little worried about the bottom of this. I think, yeah, we've got a little bit of burning there, so this is not going to be a super, super pretty one for sure, but I do not want to have a burned one, and I don't want to have a raw one, so we're gonna do the best we can there. Okay, not terrible, but definitely was smelling a little bit of scorch on there. Let me get these remaining pieces off. And then I'm gonna do a quick rinse out of this pan. We have enough to give it another shot, and we can see if we can maybe trim it down a little bit. I'm thinking maybe I have my stove just a little bit hotter than it needs to be. So I'm gonna clean this up. We're gonna set this one aside. We'll still give it a try, but then we can see if we can do a little bit better on the second time over. So see you in a few. All right, so take two, we're gonna give this another try. So I have already preloaded the pork belly onto here. So I am going to set this one onto the lower setting. I think giving it a little bit more time might be key there. And then we're going to put our second batch of the batter over the top. And let me maybe not go quite as thick on this one. I know that it was supposed to be about, they said 3/4 inch thick, so I think the first one was closer to 1 inch. So maybe a little bit less of the batter, giving it a little bit more time on with the pork belly, and also on a slightly lower temperature is going to help us get more of that even browning on the bottom. And then when we flip it, we'll avoid any of the scorching. So wish me luck. First timer going. Setting it for 10 minutes, but I'll be back to check every couple of minutes just to see how it goes. All right, we've got a few seconds left on the counter here. Let's see if a little bit of a lower temperature and some additional time on top will give us a better even browning. I also tried to do a better layer of the pork belly so it was a more even coverage. Definitely still feel quite a bit of resistance to it pulling up, but it is looking much better browning. And I don't see or smell any of that heavy charring or burning. So let's see if it's more picturesque upon a flip. Oof. All right, so we still have some of our pork belly that didn't want to come off, but seeing the other side of it, I can say that it is thoroughly cooked, so that's good. And we have a lot less sticking down here than we did the first time, so I'm hopeful. So let's get this back in. I'm gonna keep the temperature lower, and I'm gonna check back in 4 minutes and see how it's doing. So halftime, lower temperature, and hopefully we can prevent scorching and get a good golden brown. Maybe in those 4 minutes I can get rid of these hiccups. We'll find out. All right, we have got about 20 seconds left on this first 4 minutes. I'm just doing a quick check-in to see how we're looking for the bottom because I do not want to get it scorched again. And you know what? I think that it's actually probably about time for this one to come off. So, perfect. It would help if I keep things available. There's also an argument to be said about non-stick pans here, because this is not quite coming out easy. Oh, exciting. All right, so that is significantly better. So we've got a light browning across it. I still don't think that it is by any means a picture-perfect okonomiyaki. The ones that I've seen in all of the videos are just this beautiful, even golden brown. But I think that this has got a thoroughly cooked middle to it. So what I was told is you want kind of a custardy middle. You don't want it to be dry in there. This is definitely cooked through, but it's also not dry and it's not liquidy, it's not jelly. So I think we did a pretty good job on getting them cooked well enough. I have enough ingredients that I will probably put together a third one after this for roommates and husband. But in the meantime, I think Bruce and I are going to try these two, the thicker version and this thinner one, just so that we can see which is going to be or at least the flavor of them in general, and if we think that it would be something to try and refine and get a better version of. So, the way that you finish one of these off is actually pretty easy. Let me pull this one over as well. Ended up about the same size overall. Now this is the okonomiyaki sauce that I made earlier. I just put it into a piping bag to make this part easier. But you can, of course, just leave it in the bowl. I'm going to give a nice layer over all of this. And then we can do a little more. And normally this would be a nice, even, flat surface, so everything would just pool beautifully. But we're doing our best here. Then we take a little bit of the Japanese mayo, the Kewpie here, and we're just gonna go across it in stripes like this. And then the way that they get this really kind of well-known design on them is after you've taken this, you can then go through with chopsticks, or I'm just using a little bamboo skewer here, and it creates this fun little textured design on top. We are then going to add some katsuobushi. I've seen varying amounts of this. I've never actually had it in this format, so I'm probably being a little on the light-handed side for it, but forgive me, I'm going off of my palate and my understanding of things. A little bit of the sushi, or not sushi, the seaweed. I'm gonna do some more of that pickled ginger. And last but not least, some of those scallion greens. So all of those things from earlier, all just thrown together into one big dish. And I have no idea what we're about to get into, but I'm so very excited. So that is a basic version of okonomiyaki, this specific recipe. You can mix in anything you want to make it different, but this is sort of the Osaka version that I found and the one that we're gonna give a try. So I will let Bruce get some better pictures of this over here while I am setting up for some tastings, and then I'm excited to give it a try. All right, so we have our two different versions of the
Okonomiyaki?
There we go. I was like, I know how it's okonomiyaki. Yes.
Okonomiyaki.
Thank you. So on the plates here, the one on our left is going to be that first one that we tried. So that one's got more of that char to it, higher temperature, and was a shorter cook.
This one, okay.
This one over here is going to be the second one. Longer cook, a little bit of a lower temperature, and I think had better browning on it, and will probably have a better distribution of the pork belly.
All right.
I think I'm going to try with the char one first.
Same. Okay, here we go.
I'm so happy right now.
There's so much going on here, too.
Oh my god.
I'm not even really sure I can describe it. It's delicious, though.
I don't know what flavors are happening, but they're all important, I think.
There are several of the ingredients in here that feel really punchy. That just, like, jump out.
The pork belly, the texture of it, I'm getting a lot of. You definitely get the flavor of the cabbage. That's definitely there. The pickled ginger is that, like, you get that punch of ginger throughout the bite.
The sauce that goes on top, too, is a very distinctive flavor.
And I was really worried about the bonito flakes, the fish flakes on top, but they're not overwhelming at all. Oh my gosh.
Wow. I think it was the first pork belly one that I had, and wow.
Really good!
Yeah.
So the sauce is tangy. The pork is very savory, a little bit of saltiness to it. The batter itself is still plenty moist. It's not dry or necessarily fluffy like I would normally think of a pancake.
Doesn't even look like a pancake. This looks more like
Something I've never eaten before.
just a pile of cabbage with, toppings. And, like, the batter's just used to hold it together, kind of.
Yeah. And the cabbage, it's got a little bit of a bite to it. It's still a little crunchy, but it's mostly cooked through. Like, it's
Yeah,
not,
I mean,
it's not mush at all.
Yeah, it's not hard to chew through either. It's not like a mouthful of cabbage. It's soft. Easy to eat.
Okay, at some point we're gonna have to have the other bun too, but like...
Yeah, I mean, I already finished the burnt one, which, by the way, didn't taste burnt in the slightest. So, yeah. I'm not even sure if there will be a huge difference between the two. But here we go. Oh, there's some of that pork belly on the bottom. I gotta cut through. Yeah.
It's spectacular.
I'm gonna...
Now, it also definitely feels like street food too.
There we go.
Like, it's just got that we threw everything into a bowl and it was delicious street food vibe to it.
I don't know how you come up with these ingredients to just throw in together.
Let alone
But,
do it
I
on
mean-
purpose consistently.
Right, but here we are, and you know what? Whoever did it, kudos.
Oh my god. Alright, so it is a little bit of work getting all the things together, but a lot of this stuff you can buy pre-made, pre-ready. Just delicious, though.
It's really important to have that pork belly in there. Honestly, every time I have a bite with that, it's just the best.
This is dangerously delicious. Alright. In any case,
Yeah.
I have another one to fry up because I'm probably going to be finishing off this one. I imagine Bruce will be finishing off that one. And then there's more for the house. So I guess they can have some. But next time we will be back with a dish that I'm very excited for, but also very nervous for. So next week is tonkatsu ramen.
I love ramen.
I do too, but I'm well aware that there's going to be a lot of lifting in getting the ingredients together, because I'm going to make the broth and everything. So there might be a couple of videos on this one just with the different elements of it, but we'll still have just one together where we put them all together to make the ramen in the end. Very excited for that, so we'll see you next week to try that one.